Can corn snakes live together? Technically, yes, but it can go very, very wrong. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the problems with cohabitation with corn snakes. I'm David, this is Twinkle, welcome to DJL Exotics. So cohabitation of corn snakes, much like our leopard gecko video that we did recently, is a very controversial topic. There are many keepers who would recommend keeping them in groups and others who would not. We're going to go through a lot of the cons of why you shouldn't keep corn snakes together. But it can be a rather confusing topic. For instance, there are many snakes that would be often considered to be solitary, which actually show social structure or some kind of social cohesion in some ways. So for instance, rattlesnakes will hibernate with the same individuals every single year. Royal pythons in a recent study were discovered to actually form friendship groups and have specific individuals that they're friends with. And of course you've got garter snakes who do love to be in groups. But that doesn't mean that every snake is going to follow the same pattern. And with corn snakes, it's certainly a species that I would personally say is not very social. So one of the risks that is there is that corn snakes are very competitive with each other. So these guys will compete for heat, food, shelter, water, space, enrichment, everything. They will compete through the entire environment. So even if you do have two in an enclosure, it's going to have to be pretty big and offering multiple options. But even then, they could still both want to have the same branch to sit on at times, or the same hide to hide in. Very much like you would have with kids who always want the same toy. These guys can act exactly the same and they will fight for it, or at least push each other out of the way. One of the biggest risks is actually with feeding with these guys. So feeding corn snakes when they're in a communal setup means that you actually have to offer food to both of them, but these guys are very food orientated, and therefore both of them could go for the first prey item that you put in, which could lead to a fight, or even worse, cannibalism, as one of the snakes attacks the other and eats it. Now, there are ways that you can get around this. For instance, you can do feeding outside of the enclosure, putting them each into a different really useful box or a different container, feed them in there and then moving them back to the enclosure when that's done. However, feeding outside the enclosure has its own risks as well, which we will discuss in a later video. Now, the next item is all about the long-term health of these individuals. If they're kept from very young together, there are problems that the competition and the stress and the access to food can lead to one of the snakes actually growing much faster than the other one. Now, this might not seem like too much of a problem because the other one might catch up, but there is a risk that this could actually lead to cannibalism later on because the other snake will therefore become prey item. Remember, in the wild, these guys do eat other snakes, as well as rodents, birds, eggs, and all sorts of things. So these guys are really opportunists, and if they're hungry and they see a smaller snake inside their enclosure, they may eat that one, even if it's another corn snake. Another point to talk about is actually the stress. Remember that the stress of competition is actually going to harm your snake silently. It's going to get stressed, so it may go off its food, it may not have imperfect sheds, it may be more susceptible to diseases, and therefore if you've got two snakes living together, the one which is being outcompeted is more likely to have a very early death compared to the one which is outcompeting. But even that one that is outcompeting, the stress of actually having to fight for dominance might be too much for it. Another problem is disease spread. If you've got snakes that are living communally, if one of them catches an illness, the other one is bound to get that almost instantly. Therefore, instead of having to take one snake to a vet, you're going to have to take both of them to a vet. They're both going to have treatments. And vet treatment for reptiles can be very expensive. It can be, a couple of £100 just for the simplest antibiotics and assessment. And it's unnecessary just to keep two snakes together. That cost could go on another vivarium to keep your snakes separately. Final point to make about these guys is that they don't actually seek companionship. Apart from for breeding, these guys live solitary lives in the wild and should do in captivity. Yes, there are places where you will see them together, but they're not generally hanging around. They are just spending their life doing what they want to do. It's not like they've got friends. These guys don't need that social, they don't have that kind of brain pattern. It's not like other snakes that do, like the garter snakes. It's more of these guys are just going to live their life on their own. If you've got them in pairs, it's just them sharing a space together. Now, there are people who would say that they keep corn snakes together, and quite often you can go to zoos and you can see an enclosure where they might have 2 or 3 corn snakes in the same environment. Now, this is done because these animals are under constant surveillance, pretty much. They normally have much larger enclosures, so some of the ones at the zoo can be 8 or 10 feet wide, and therefore there's a lot of space there for the corn snake to actually escape if it doesn't want to be interacting with the other cohabitants as such. But in addition to that, the snakes aren't really kind of left to their own devices. The zoo staff can actually remove them, and they will have spare enclosures out the back where they could put any individuals which are struggling in the community. It's normally done by very experienced keepers. I would not recommend it for any beginners, and to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend it for experienced keepers. It's best to have several snake enclosures, or even if these places do actually keep them together and they can successfully keep them for many years, there are still risks such as the disease spread or the fact that one of them might outcompete the other one. However, if you are looking for a communal snake, there are options on the market. So you can get the garter snakes. Now these guys must live in groups. They get very lonely, they have that social need. And the problem with garter snakes is that even well-bred ones, there is a high chance that they actually do pass away within a year. So you need to get a group of at least 4 to 6 in order to ensure that you've got a good community within your enclosure that has the garter snakes. However, garter snakes aren't the easiest to care for. They have very specific requirements, they're very specific diets, and you may end up regretting getting garter snakes if you're a beginner instead of just going for a really nice corn that will be very easy to care for. Apart from that, thank you very much for watching. Let us know if there are any other snakes that you would recommend keeping in groups in the comments below. Apart from that, like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Bye for now.